Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday night. We got an exciting show planned for you. Thanks for sticking around. Hey, let's finish off the polling, our new poll system, which we were kind of having a whole lot of fun with. Last night, yesterday's poll was, should ICE leave Minneapolis, Minnesota? And it came in, 67% said no, they shouldn't. 23% said they should. So today's poll is going to be, those results are closed for the night. That's for the history books. Now, the next poll is going to be tonight. Are you in favor of regime change in Iran? Are you in favor of regime change in Iran? Now, of course, I'm insinuating that America is the impetus for the regime change in Iran, with the news today that President Trump is moving some ships around, and he's insinuating that Iran wants to make a deal. Wait and see how all that turns out. But that's the poll question tonight. If you want to chime in and vote, you have to text your vote to 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. You have to text in vote yes or vote no, depending on which way you are. Are you in favor of regime change in Iran? And we'll do the results later on in the show. Now, tonight's show, we've got a fun show for you. It's something I've been looking forward to for a long time. It is going to be the first of what is many. It's the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. And one of our great things are national parks. And so we have teamed up with the National Park Foundation, and every Tuesday throughout the year, we're going to talk to a park ranger from a national park. This first show, the kickoff show, we're going to talk to the president and CEO of the National Park Foundation. Jeff Reinbold is going to kick things off tonight. And then, of course, we'll look forward to the park rangers giving up an in-depth conversation as to the national parks. We'll highlight a national park once a week or so. So that's the plan for 2026. So we'll do that in hour number 2. In hour number 1, a little bit later on, we're going to talk to Bloomberg finance reporter Pete Schiff to talk about Japan, the bond market, the dollar, gold. We'll get a primer with all of that because the markets seem to be moving around quite a bit. We'll check in with him. But coming up in just a minute, we're going to talk to a Brown University professor, a former foreign correspondent for the New York Times. He has written a couple of books. One of them is called All the Shah's Men, and the other one is called Overthrow. And he teaches a course on American intervention. And he has some interesting history that a lot of Americans forgot about regime change, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we'll check in with Stephen Kinzer coming up here in just a minute. So that's the plan for tonight. Of course, the text line is open. You can text your comments to 1-844-2-McGraw or 1-844-262-4729. And, of course, the text line and that same number is for the poll. So you have to put in vote yes or vote no. If you type in yes or no, it won't work. So you have to type in vote yes or vote no, and then your poll results will be registered. And then, of course, in hour number 3, we've got open phones. So that's the plan for tonight. We got a full show for you. Stick around right here. Now, let me tell you. Wait. One more thing before I go to a break. I want your heads to explode. So, in 2015, President Obama, awarded somebody from ICE the Presidential Rank Award for Distinguished Service. It was an Executive Associate Director of Immigration and Custom Enforcement. He was recognized for his leadership and effectiveness in immigration enforcement, and he showed a high level of honor for career senior service members, recognizing sustained extraordinary accomplishments. He was also honored for his performance in overseeing at the time a record number of deportations of individuals with criminal histories. Do you know who I'm talking about? President Barack Obama gave the Presidential Rank Award for Distinguished Service to Tom Homan. who is now the border czar, headed to Minneapolis to take charge of Minneapolis. So when Tom Homan was working for the Obama administration, he gave him an award because he credits him with a lot of President Obama becoming the deporter-in-chief. That sound you hear are people's heads exploding. Maybe we'll talk about that in the 9 o'clock hour. Hey, let me tell you about a better digital life with our partner, WebRoot. New year, new devices, new you. And you get a new peace of mind. Get help protecting your devices, your identity, and your privacy in 2026. Choose the protection that fits your life with WebRoot Essentials or WebRoot Total Protection. Now, WebRoot makes it easy to choose the protection that's right for you. Got a new device? WebRoot Essentials delivers lightning-fast antivirus plus password manager and Web Threat Shield, helping protect your devices, your personal info, and your passwords from malware, ransomware, and more. Now, for me, we choose WebRoot Total Protection. It's an all-in-one device, privacy and identity protection that takes the guesswork out of cybersecurity with antivirus, identity protection, VPN, cloud backup. WebRoot Tool Protection helps keep our entire family safe. New year, new device. Whether you're upgrading your tech or sticking with what you've got, now's the time to protect all of your family's devices with 60% off WebRoot's trusted cybersecurity solutions. This year, choose the protection that's right for you. Visit webroot.com/AAN in lowercase for 60% off. That's webroot.com/AAN. Make sure it's in the lowercase for 60% off. WebRoot. America at Night. Back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Welcome back to America at Night. McGraw Milhaven here, and we are lucky enough to talk to a gentleman who knows quite a bit about overthrowing governments and the history of Iran. Especially today, it's important to sort of look back. Our guest is Stephen Kinzer, who is an award-winning foreign correspondent. He worked in more than 50 countries. He's worked at the New York Times bureau chief in Istanbul, Berlin, as well as others. He's written 2 books. One was called Overthrow, and the other one was called All the Shah's Men. Stephen, welcome to America at Night.
Good to be with you.
Let's talk about Iran, because it's as simple as we don't have the world order today that we have, the chaos. And you say in this book, All the Shah's Men, that it goes back to 1953 and the overthrow of a duly elected government in Iran, and the United States helped put in the Shah, which ultimately led to the crisis we have today in the Middle East. Please explain.
First of all, let me set the larger stage. I think Americans tend to believe that crises just suddenly emerge. They suddenly explode out of nowhere, like the old ancient Greeks and Romans believed, since they didn't know about evolution, that there was something called spontaneous generation, where if you had a lot of sun and some water and some mud, pretty soon a salamander would pop out. That's the way we look at crises like the crisis we're facing in Iran. But this is not correct. Actually, you have to look back and try to understand the circumstances that create modern crises. And this is certainly true with Iran. So in the United States, the general opinion about Iran, which is widespread, very negative, I think comes still, even though so much time has passed, largely from the hostage crisis of 1979, 1980, when American diplomats were held captive in Iran for more than a year. We still think of Iran as a place that's savage and lawless, and therefore we're still treating it that way. So for us, for Americans, the big moment in the history of U.S.-Iran relations was the hostage crisis. But from Iran, things look very different. For them, the hostage crisis was just a little bump in the road. Nobody was killed. It just seemed like a much more minor episode than it seems for us. However, they also have a moment in history that they point to. as the time when U.S.-Iran relations were destroyed forever, not the hostage crisis. It came decades earlier. As you mentioned, in the early 1950s, following World War II, Iran finally began to emerge as a democracy. And they elected a leader who was very widely respected, Mohammad Mossadegh. He became the prime minister through the early 1950s. Since he was democratically elected, he had to respond to the wishes of the people who elected him, of the Iranian people. And in Iran, there was one overwhelming reality that shaped everything else, and it's this. Iran was sitting on an ocean of oil, but all that oil was owned by one British company. They had bought it from a corrupt Shah years earlier. So Mossadegh, with the support of parliament, nationalized the Iranian oil wealth. It was going to be used now for the benefit of Iran. This sent the British, who owned the oil concession, and the Americans, who were terrified of a nationalist regime emerging anywhere in the world that tried to control its own resources, to stage a coup against Mossadegh. So here is the only real democratic leader Iran ever had. The United States overthrew him. President Eisenhower asked the CIA to send an agent to Iran and organize a coup. That coup in 1953 not only ended the career of Mohammad Mossadegh, it ended democracy in Iran forever. We put the Shah back on the peacock throne. He ruled with increasing repression for 25 years, and as we all know, was finally overthrown in a popular uprising in 1978 and 79. Now, what followed that was the hostage crisis, which to Americans seemed like an outburst of absolute savagery by people who respected no law of God or man. But why did those hostage takers do that? Over the years since then, several of them have written their memoirs, and they address this question. Why did we do it? And they all say the same thing. They say it all was a result of our memories of 1953. In 1953, there was a democratic leader in Iran, the CIA, working from an office in the basement of the U.S. Embassy, organized a coup to overthrow him and bring back the Shah, who had fled into exile. Now, they said, in 1979, we were thinking the Shah has fled again into exile. The same Shah. And so we're terrified that 1953 will repeat itself, that CIA agents working in the basement of the U.S. Embassy will stage a coup against the new government and bring the Shah back. What made us think that? Because it had already happened once. So here you see the way that Iranian and American history and perceptions separate so starkly. For us, nothing bad happened before the hostage crisis, and everything since then was bad.
Yeah.
For Iranians, it looks different. We loved Americans up until 1953. You took away our democracy, which we never got back, and that's why we're angry at you. So you have this very different clash of perceptions from two sides of an argument who see its origins very differently.
Our guest is Stephen Kinzer. His two books, All the Shah's Men, came out in 2008, and the other one is called Overthrow, which is the story of our hubris, more or less, in thinking that we can control the game, right? I mean, is it as simple as the law of unintended consequences? We think we're doing right, but we don't see past our own self-interests?
When you violently intervene in the affairs of another country, you're doing something like releasing a wheel from the top of a hill. You can let it go, but you have really very little control over how it bounces or where it's ultimately going to end up. And I think that analogy works well for the American overthrows of foreign governments. We have the power to overthrow governments, and we've used that power often and sometimes very fiercely. But once we succeed, we lose interest, and countries go their own way. Iran is a perfect example. We turned what was a democracy into a dictatorship, a royal dictatorship. We pretend that we're doing the opposite. that we're overthrowing dictatorships to implant democracy. But almost nowhere does democracy emerge after a violent intervention. So the Iranians see the outside world as constantly intervening in their affairs. And now, as they see what President Trump is planning, that he's got this huge flotilla of military warships around the Iranian waters, they see a pattern emerging, that this is just one more case of America trying to intervene. You know, the great writer Gore Vidal sometimes said that the United States should change its name and it should be called the United States of Amnesia, because we often don't remember the things that we did before. And we like to think of ourselves as good forces in the world that want to protect decency and freedom and justice and equality. But when you look at the results of American interventions around the world, you often see that the reality is opposite. Now, the United States has a sense that it's the moral force in the world, and it has not only the right, but almost a providential duty to go out and redeem other countries that don't know how to rule themselves. And I think this has gotten America into a lot of trouble over the years. As we get into this new era of Trump, I think we need to bear this in mind, that our interventions in foreign countries are born out of a sense of pride and a sense that whatever happens afterwards, we'll be able to fix it because we're America. But that is not the way history works. If history would stop after we organized a coup and overthrew a government, that would be great. So we overthrow Mossadegh, we get what we want, everything stops there. But history keeps on happening. And the memories of what we did in 1953 in Iran, overthrowing a democratic government and installing a king, burned in the minds of the revolutionaries of the late 1970s, including the ones who took hostages in the American embassy. And that episode then poisoned the minds of Americans against Iranians, just the way the 1953 coup had poisoned the minds of Iranians against Americans. So we don't think through long-term consequences. I think it's partly because we feel we're so strong, we can overrule history. History doesn't matter to us, and therefore we don't need to think about what might go wrong the day after.
That's Stephen Kinzer, and his book is All the Shah's Men, talking about an American coup and the roots of Middle East terror. More on America at Night. Back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Welcome back. Our conversation with Brown University professor Stephen Kinzer, who has written a couple of great books, All the Shah's Men, An American Coup and the Roots of Middle East Terror. His second book that's getting a lot of attention called Overthrow, America's Century of Regime Change from Hawaii to Iraq. Stephen, what are you talking about? America we go in with such love and caring. We helped rebuild Germany. We helped rebuild Japan. We bring democracy to these places. What are you talking about?
It's true that in Germany and Japan, America had a very positive influence in the post-war years. But once the Cold War began, things changed. The CIA was created in 1947. One of the main reasons was that the United States saw trouble around the world. We wanted to assure our access to resources and to markets around the world, and we wanted to secure our strategic position. So during that period, the United States and most Americans saw the world as divided into two big camps. There was the Western capitalist camp with the headquarters in Washington, and then there was the communist camp with the headquarters in Moscow. That was the division of the world. But in many countries, including most countries south of the equator, the world looked very different. To them, the real division was between the rich exploiting countries, which included the United States and the Soviet Union, all in one group, all trying to oppress us poor little countries. At that time, lots of countries were emerging out of colonialism. That was in the 1950s. And these countries were greatly underdeveloped. So their new leaders wanted to devote themselves to building up their countries. But they did not want to get involved in the Cold War. They didn't want to be pro-Soviet or pro-American. The United States never accepted that. John Foster Dulles, who was Secretary of State in the 1950s, used to say, neutralism is immoral. In other words, you have to be on the side of the Americans. If you're not, you're probably a Soviet agent. And that was the line that the United States used to overthrow governments in the 1950s, including the government of Iran. Prime Minister Mossadegh, who we overthrew in 1953, had a foreign policy that he called negative equilibrium. It was essentially, we don't favor the Soviets, we don't favor the Americans. But the Americans could not accept that, and they feared that all those neutralist leaders were actually secret enemies or secret agents of the communists. Misunderstanding the power of nationalism in the developing world, we crashed into countries that we thought were not sufficiently loyal to us. One of the most poignant examples is Iran, and we are paying the price for our short-sighted ignorance with every day that passes today as we see the crisis between the United States and Iran escalating.
How maybe you've sort of mentioned this before, but how can it be that we keep making the same mistake over and over again, right? You mentioned Vietnam. You didn't mention Vietnam, but Vietnam, right? A classic example of let's try and overthrow that regime. You talk Iraq, you talk Iran, you talk Venezuela. You talk the Central America over the years. How come no one's smart enough at the table to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's a different way?
Well, that's a fundamental question, and I sometimes give my students here at Brown University a long list of quotes that I have about history. What is history? And I think my favorite one from all of those is from the German philosopher Hegel, who once wrote, "The only thing we learn from history is that we do not learn from history." And I think that's reflected in our series of interventions. We never look back to see how things have gone wrong, and we always think, this time we're going to get it right. All those other presidents didn't really plan correctly. They had misconceptions and didn't do things right. This time we're going to get it right. I think that was why we invaded Iraq also. We never thought that anything would go badly there. So there's a sense in the American consciousness that I sometimes call the can-do mentality. And this is a great thing. That's what made us invent airplanes and electricity and cross the continent and so forth. But there's a dark side to the can-do mentality when you apply it to international affairs. It tells you that if you want something badly enough and you work hard enough, you're going to get it. But that's not the way history works. There are forces of culture and politics in other countries that upset that assumption. And the idea that we can crash into other countries, violently change their political orders, then walk away and everything will be fine is something that captures leaders time after time. And as you point out, we never look back to say, this hasn't worked time after time. Maybe we should try a different approach. And I think Iran is a great example of this. We have demonized Iran and made it one of the most heavily sanctioned countries in world history. Another approach would be to try to reach out to Iran, assure them that we're not trying to destroy their political or social or economic system, and see if we can't find a way to reach an agreement in which both sides would be able to live and let live. But that slogan, live and let live, is not really part of the American approach to the rest of the world. It's live like we live. Otherwise, you're living in a wrong way, and we're going to come and correct you.
Well, in terms of Japan, though, right? I mean, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and then 5 years later, we sort of became their friends. Iran, we're still holding a grudge 45 years later after the hostages have been released. So there's there's that, just a different mindset, I guess.
You're absolutely right. We don't apply equal standards to all countries. We decided very quickly after World War II that we would forgive Japan, including not facing the fact that Japan, of course, had committed crimes vastly greater than anything Iran ever did. But since we controlled Japanese politics all during the 1940s and 50s and 60s, we were able to tell the world Japan has changed now. Japan is doing what we say. Now, that's really the heart of the issue. The countries that America tries to, where America tries to overthrow governments or tries to intervene, all have one thing in common, and that is defiance. They do not get on board with the American project. They don't run their countries the way the United States thinks countries should be run, and they do not support American foreign policy. They defy us. They won't do what we say. And there's an inability in the American mind to accept this. We tend to think that the countries that resist our influence, by their ignorance in doing so, are showing how important it is for us to go intervene there and put them on the right track again. But putting a country on a track that you like is very difficult, and especially in Iran. You know, Iran is 10 times older than the United States. The Persian Empire was founded in 500 BC. This is a country that has a really strong sense of itself. It's not a country that just came into existence after World War II, like Syria or Iraq or Jordan or many of the other countries in that neighborhood. And I don't think the Americans have a grasp on the sense of self that Iranians have, the centuries of anger that has built up in their minds against foreign intervention, and their desire to shape their own future rather than have it shaped from foreign capitals.
Stephen Kinzer, last question for you. His two books, Overthrow, America's Century of Regime Change from Hawaii to Iraq, and the other one that's getting a lot of attention now because it's back in the news. The other one is called All the Shah's Men. So is it hubris to even ask you, what do you think the future of Venezuela is? Is it hubris to ask you what happens with Iraq if we end up doing something, or Gaza? Because what we think we're doing, it's almost comical to think we know what we're actually trying to do today, and what we do today, we somehow know what the outcome will be?
One thing that I find intriguing about the Venezuela project is that President Trump is doing something very different from what President Bush did when he seized Iraq. At that time, Bush sent a comically incompetent bureaucrat named Paul Bremer to take over Iraq. He was essentially the dictator of Iraq. And he made terrible decisions based on his ignorance of Iraq that led to all the trouble that came afterward. Now, Saddam Hussein had a prime minister. His name was Tariq Aziz. This was a very sophisticated person. He was an Iraqi Christian, a very thoughtful bureaucrat, of course, pro-Saddam. Would have been much better if the United States had gotten rid of Saddam and then turned the country over to someone who already knew how to keep the water systems going and how to keep the police paid, and thereby preserving some system, some kind of structure. Now, the fact that we didn't do that in Iraq produced all the tragedy of the future 20 years. Now, in Venezuela, I see that Trump is not doing this. What essentially he's done is he's decapitated the regime with this commando raid in which he kidnapped the president. And then he told the vice president to try to run the country. Now, that woman who's vice president has a long history of resistance to American power. She comes from a family background, very anti-imperialist and radical. On the other hand, she recognizes reality, which is that the United States now has great power in Venezuela. So she's going to have to try to navigate this rough course or thread this difficult needle between maintaining her nationalist beliefs and also accepting the reality of American power. That's going to be a very interesting thing to watch. It's a much better way to overthrow governments than the way we usually do it. However, even better than that way would be not to overthrow them at all.
Stephen Kinzer, our guest, former New York Times bureau chief, author of a couple of books, Overthrow, America's Century of Regime Change, and All the Shah's Men, and apparently a wonderful and entertaining professor at Brown University. This is what you talk about all day at Brown University?
I teach a course called The History of American Intervention, so you can see I've got a lot of these facts back in my head.
Stephen Kinzer, thank you very much for your time. Good luck down the road, and keep your phone on. We reserve the right to call you back at any time.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day. America at Night, back in a moment.
From the heart of America. From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, we have a couple minutes left in hour number one. Peter Schiff is nice enough to join us. He's CEO and Chief Global Strategist for Euro-Pacific Capital. You see him on Fox News and CNBC and Fox Business and everywhere else. Peter, thanks for joining us for a couple minutes tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. How are you?
Good. What's going on with the Japanese bond market, and how worried should we be, and what's the news there?
Well, look, Japanese interest rates have been very low for very long. And as a result, the Japanese government ran up a lot of debt and created a lot of inflation. And now bond yields are rising. And this is a big deal. It's going to put a lot of upward pressure on yields here in the U.S. But it's also ultimately going to cause the unraveling of the yen carry trade, which is going to put a lot of downward pressure on a lot of risk assets in the United States, like tech stocks.
So that's going to hurt tech stocks, is what you're saying?
I think so, yeah. And it's also going to hurt the dollar because I think there's going to be a rally in the yen. In fact, the U.S. dollar hit a 4-year low today across the board. It hit an all-time record low against the Swiss franc. That's why gold tonight is trading at an all-time record high above 5,226. A year ago, it was 3,000. 2 years ago, it was under 2,000. Silver is $1.14. 2 years ago, it was less than $30. So $114 an ounce right now. This is a warning sign that we are headed for a major economic crisis in the United States. Not just a financial crisis, but an economic crisis that's much bigger than the '08 financial crisis. It's a U.S. dollar crisis and a sovereign debt crisis, and that's going to unleash incredible inflation in the United States, massive upward pressure on consumer prices and long-term interest rates. It's not going to be pretty.
Is that because of what's going on in Japan, or is that because our own house isn't in order?
It's our own house. I mean, we're going to have some problems coming from Japan, but most of our problems are made in the U.S. And one of the few things that we still make are economic problems and inflation. We don't have to import those from the rest of the world. We create plenty of it. And so it's the economic chickens coming home to roost. We've been running these huge budget deficits and trade deficits and printing a lot of money and living off of debt and consumption. And we've inflated a bubble economy. And, it's been pricked. Gold and silver are the warning signs that this crisis is coming. Just like when subprime blew up in 2007, it was a warning, and we got the financial crisis in 2008. Well, we're going to have an economic crisis either in 2020, 2026 or 2027 in the United States. And it's going to be much worse because there's going to be no bailouts, because this is not, mortgage borrowers that can't repay their debt. This is a loss of confidence in the creditworthiness of the United States and a loss of confidence in the integrity of the U.S. currency. So it's a huge collapse, and we've been living off the reserve status of the dollar. We're going to lose that status, and that means everything that we need to buy in this country is going to be much more expensive, and it's going to mean a lot of empty shelves, too. When you go into the store, there's going to be a lot of empty shelves because we really can't afford to import the products anymore because people aren't going to want our currency. They're going to want our stuff, but we don't make enough stuff. That is the problem. We don't have the factories. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the supply chains. And of course, we don't have the savings to produce any of that stuff. So, we've been living, high on the hog. We've been riding the global gravy train, and that's coming to an end. Donald Trump has got it backwards when he says that the world takes advantage of America. It's America that's been taking advantage of the world, and the world is about to pull the rug out from under the dollar, which is going to collapse our entire economy.
Peter, I got just about a minute left. Are the tariffs helping or hurting the situation, in your opinion?
Well, they're hurting. I mean, obviously, taxing Americans, when they're already struggling is not a good thing. But look, the government needs to raise revenue because we have huge deficits. It would be much better if we cut government spending. Instead, Trump increased government spending and then cut income taxes, and he's trying to make up some of the lost revenue with tariffs. But where Trump is not being honest with the American public is he pretends that China pays the tariffs or Mexico or Canada. They don't. America pays America's tariffs, not the Chinese, not the Mexicans. They're taxes on Americans, and they're just making, the goods that we buy more expensive. But they're also making America less competitive because a lot of American manufacturers, the few that we have left, import a lot of components. And now it's a lot more expensive to bring that stuff in. And so it's making what's left of our industry even less competitive on a global scale than it already was.
Pete Schiff, we have to leave it there. CEO of Chief Global Strategist of Euro-Pacific Capital. We'll get you back when we have more time. Thank you for dropping the bomb.
Euro-Pacific Asset Management is the actual name. Euro-Pacific Asset Management.
Thank you very much, Peter. Website. What's the website?
Europac.com. EUROPAC.com.
Europac.com. Peter Schiff with us. We'll have him back when we have more time. Stay right there. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. McGraw Milhaven here. And this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, let's get right to it. As the new host of this treasured show that was once hosted by Larry King and then hosted by Jim Bohannon for years, shortly after I was offered the job and I accepted the job, one of the things I wanted to do was to reach out to the national parks. And I knew we were coming up on the 250th anniversary of this wonderful country, and I wanted to see if we could do some type of segment, a weekly, monthly. I didn't know what it was, but I wanted to somehow spotlight and highlight the national parks for all of their glory because it's such a great story. We don't know enough about the national parks. We don't know enough about our own country, and I reached out to the national parks, and they were so wonderful and so helpful, and so we decided together to put on a show, a regular show, that's going to run every week, every other week, or it's going to be a defined time where we can sit and talk about the national parks. And tonight is our very first show, and we've been looking forward to this. We'd like to invite Jeff Reinbold to the show. Jeff, you're president and CEO of the National Park Foundation. Welcome to America at Night, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, McGraw. Thank you for having me on, and thanks for thinking about the national parks this year. I don't think there's anything more American than our national parks, and I just really love that you're leaning into that idea.
Well, we couldn't do it without you and your team and everybody else. Tell us about some of the things you guys are planning for the 250th celebration.
Well, there's going to be lots of events all around the country. I would say the big thing for us, though, is, this is a time, and I really appreciate you, the direction you're taking things here. There's so many people that want to divide us and talk about the things that separate us. And I really think there is nothing like the common ground that the national parks present. I say to folks, this is a year where people might be debating this or celebrating that. And the national parks are right in the middle of this. I tell folks we have a big tent. Everyone's welcome. The flaps are up. Come join us. So you're going to see, I remember the bicentennial very fondly. I was a kid that was the perfect age. I'm guessing you might have been too. And those memories really stick with me. And so there will be lots of events and activities around the country. For us, we really want to place the national parks in the center of people's consciousness and lean into this really unique American institution that it's a legacy. It's a legacy that we all inherit. We get to use them, we get to enjoy them, but we also have a responsibility to pass them on to the next generation. And I think in this year, there's nothing that says, the American spirit and the American landscape and the American story like the national park. So we're encouraging folks, get out, explore your America, not just the parks that begin with Y's, the very famous Yellowstone and Yosemite's, but there's probably a park within easy driving distance of most of your listeners. And it's be a great year to go and reacquaint yourself with it.
Yeah, Jeff, let's talk about what the National Park Foundation is, because I sit on one of the boards in St. Louis that helps out the Arch Grounds, right? Part of those public-private partnerships that is so special. And I didn't even know about the National Park Foundation. So that's different than the national park. So how are you separate and or similar and help out?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So, the national park idea goes back to the 1860s and 70s, and Congress started to create these parks, and they were coming together in kind of a patchwork. And in 1916, Congress did this incredibly radical move. Here, Ken Burns talks about this very exquisitely, where instead of following the European model of take the most important places and they're behind a fence and the wealthy and the elites own them, we're going to take the places that define the nation, the scenery of the nation and the story, and make them available to everyone, that it's part of your birthright. Incredibly radical idea at the time. We forget it now. We take it for granted. It was very radical at the time. And what they were finding is they needed an agency to oversee these, and created the National Park Service. It's a federal agency that oversees the parks. But from that very beginning, the public was very active in creating these parks. So the DNA of private citizens and the federal government or state governments in the beginning working together goes back to the very essence of creating Yosemite and Yellowstone. And by the time we hit the 60s, this was happening in a kind of uncoordinated way, and was really starting to overwhelm the Park Service. And Congress created the National Park Foundation. So we are the country's charity for the national parks, to accept donations and to work with the Park Service to take this amazing legacy we had of the public being involved in these special places and help it go forward. So we work hand in glove with the National Park Service to try to bring the best of the private sector and the nonprofit sector together with the government.
We should say we're kicking off our segment tonight with you, and then the idea is that each time we talk, we're going to get a park ranger from one of the 430-plus national parks. And one of the most favorite things I like to do is sit with a park ranger who knows their stuff and just ask them a bunch of questions. And there's nothing more enjoyable than just learning about something that somebody has taken a deep dive. And you were talking about when you were a kid, the bicentennial, which I remember very well. But I remember better, somehow somebody got us tickets to the reopening of the Statue of Liberty in Lower Manhattan. And we were there, it was Battery Park or somewhere, and we saw the fireworks of fireworks when they reopened the National Park, and Ronald Reagan hit the button, and the fireworks went up all around Manhattan. It was something that I still remember today.
Yeah, it's one of those amazing things the national parks are. Folks often ask me, what's your park story? Like when you were a kid, did you get in the station wagon and be driven to national parks? McGraw, did you? Was that a thing of your childhood?
Yeah, it was a wood paneled country squire. Absolutely,
you're right out of Central Casting. Yeah, that's perfect. I love it. I was the opposite. I grew up in the coal country and steel mills of Western Pennsylvania. By the time we hit the 80s and 70s, kind of the bottom was falling out, and travels like that were just not on people's minds. But there was something about the national parks that I knew, right? I fell in love with the idea before I actually visited any of them. And I think that's one of the magical things about the parks is you may not have gone to any, or you may have gone to some and not known it, but you can still name probably 20 of them off the top of your head. And because it is the Statue of Liberty, and it's that image that you remember, and people will know Mount Rushmore, and they'll know the memorials, and they'll know the Grand Canyon. And it just has this amazing kind of draw and Americana with it, because these places are just so iconic that they're better when you visited them, but they're pretty damn good when you like the idea of them too.
Yeah. Jeff Reinbold, our guest for the whole hour. If you have a question, you can certainly text your questions to 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We're kicking off our 250th celebration of America with the National Park Foundation tonight. We got lots more to get to. Jeff has a resume that you dream about with some of the places and some of the things he helped create. So we'll get into some of that a little bit later on in this show. 1-844-262-4729. If you have a question, you can certainly text it right now. More with Jeff and the National Park Foundation in a moment. Back after this.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Jeff Reinbold is our guest, president and CEO of the National Park Foundation, as we kick off our semi-weekly segment with the National Park celebrating the 250th anniversary of our country. Jeff, now you're now the CEO of the National Park Foundation, but before that role, you did a number of other things, including you were the superintendent for the National Mall. What is underneath the Lincoln Memorial?
I think the question is what's about to be underneath it. Yes. Thank you. Before I came to the nonprofit side, I was with the National Park Service for over 30 years, and it was an amazing career, and I had the honor of the last 5 of those. I was responsible for all the monuments and memorials in Washington, D.C. on the mall there. And one of our big projects, and one that will be unveiled this year for the 250th, you asked about the 250th anniversary of the country this year, is creating a museum under the Lincoln Memorial. So if you approach the Lincoln Memorial from the reflecting pool, it looks like it is sitting almost on a hill. And that is totally manufactured. There's a space underneath it, this huge chamber that's probably 75 or 80 feet high. And it's unfinished. It has a dirt floor, and it is basically created so that you have those steps that lead you up to that iconic view of President Lincoln. And then also the view that when you turn around and look back out over the mall and through the columns there. But it's hollow underneath. And they've had the idea, I think it goes back to the 80s, where there was first discussion about there was a window put in to let people look under this place, because it's almost like a cathedral under there, a very raw cathedral. And it just couldn't make it work. And so for the last, it's been 6 or 7 years, we've been working on a way to basically suspend a glass box underneath there so that you can go under it, learn about the memorial, and get a view into this unfinished space. And you really get the juxtaposition of the area under the Lincoln Memorial is very rough and very raw, but has a certain presence to it, almost as if the nation's coming together. And you see at the top, they emphasize when you go up to the memorial itself, the designers leaned into Lincoln as the unifier and bringing the country together. And it's gonna blow people's minds. It will be one of the hottest tickets in D.C. There's also a little wrinkle to it that I'll share with your listeners if they get a chance to go and visit. There's graffiti down there from we just celebrated a couple years ago the 100th anniversary of it. So this is from the late 19 teens, early 1920s. And we pulled the graffiti out and have made it accessible to people that they'll be able to see it. But here at that same time as they're building this memorial to the great unifier, the president that led us after the Civil War and out of the Civil War, I should say, it's the same time as World War I ends. and the world is kind of pulling itself apart and looking to the United States potentially for a way forward. And so that's one of the beautiful things about national parks, particularly places like the Lincoln Memorial, is you pull on one thread and you just realize how many other things are connected to it. If you're a curious person, the national parks are definitely for you.
Was this space was always there? It was just vacant, and so you decided to sort of use it once it was there?
It's been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
So imagine these columns that are about 75 or 80 feet high. It is like going into a church almost, where you have these high columns, no lateral supports in it. So it's all very vertical, and it's literally, there's dirt on the floor. And once they finished, they basically left, and it hasn't been touched since then. And it's just an amazing space, and I think visitors are really going to love it.
Yeah, we'll stay on the mall for just a moment, because you talk about the Lincoln Memorial, you talk about the World War II Memorial. The wall is right near there, and the wall. Let's talk about that for a moment, because the wall is so simple and yet so iconic. And right across from it is that statue of the three soldiers, and that's more of a traditional statue. I've always been ripped apart by that traditional statue. And then the wall behind it. It's extraordinary. It's moving. It's heartbreaking. It's all of that wrapped into one.
It is, and the people today are forgetting how controversial it was when it was first designed. The idea of this kind of tear into the earth and the simplicity of it, and that it wasn't statues. And it's hard to imagine the memorial landscape of the mall without it now. It is so iconic. And I had the privilege over those 5 years to be a speaker at so many Memorial Days and Veterans Days. And one of the things that was really interesting was you not only get the stories at each individual site, but they're different from memorial to memorial. So I would start the morning at World War II, and it would be almost celebratory. And the afternoon would start at Vietnam, and it was still raw. And the attendees there still had, there was just a little bit of an edge to it. And then would go over to Korea, and Korea had this amazing connection between the Korean government and the Korean people in the United States. And it was one of the beautiful things, is as gorgeous as the memorials are, they bring people together in a way that is unlike anything else. It was one of the most special days, particularly Veterans Day or Memorial Day on the mall, is I could just stand out there for hours, and you didn't say a word, you just listened. And people wanted somebody to talk to, and they wanted to tell you the story, and they wanted to point to this name on the wall and tell you that was their uncle and what their uncle meant to them. And you realize just what a privilege it is to hear those stories, but also to provide that place where people can come and provide closure or solace or just grieve.
Yeah.
And it's done in such an amazing way. You're right.
I got about a minute here, and I got a break. We got more to get to, Jeff. But is it true that Vietnam statue, right? You have the wall, and then you have the statue of those three soldiers. Is it true that the national parks keeps everything that is left by the visitors on that statue?
So we keep things. When I was with the Park Service, the National Park Service keeps things that are at the wall and at the statues. It is so overwhelming now that they've started to limit what they collect. But yes, there is a building that has the Harley Davidson that was left there, and many Purple Hearts, and many other things that loved ones and former soldiers have brought and left there in tribute.
That's pretty amazing. Jeff Reinbold, our guest, president and CEO of the National Park Foundation, as we kick off the 250th anniversary and the celebration of this country. And we're going to do it by highlighting the national parks each and every week. Text your questions for Jeff to 1-844-262-4729, 1-844-262-4729. We're going to kick off with him, and then each and every time we do it, they're going to allow us to talk to a park ranger for an hour, and what a thrill to talk to a park ranger, get all of our questions, and take a trip to a national park every time we do this. So we're looking forward to more with Jeff Reinbold, the president and CEO of the National Park Foundation. In a moment, America at Night.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
We're talking national parks in honor of the 250th anniversary of this great country. Jeff Reinbold is president and CEO of the National Park Foundation. And before he was the CEO and president, he was spent 30 years in the National Park Service. Jeff, we were talking about your time as a superintendent on the National Mall. Tell me about setting up Flight 93's National Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that was a project of a lifetime. I was asked to go up there right after 9/11 and the terrorist attacks. And if folks are not familiar with Flight 93, it was the fourth plane, the one that was headed to Washington, D.C., that the passengers and crew brought down in a field in Pennsylvania, which is only about 19 minutes by air from the Capitol. And what an amazing project. I had the chance to go up there and work with a great, incredibly selfless community in rural Pennsylvania and a mix of families of the passengers and crew from around the country. And it's where I first got introduced to the National Park Foundation and to private fundraising. It sounds crazy, but we were in the middle of trying to create this memorial. A lot of attention, a lot of money had gone to Ground Zero in New York and to the Pentagon. And we were struggling to come up with the money to do this. And most people don't know this, but a memorial like that is largely privately funded. And the federal government paid for the land, and we had to come up with the money for the memorial itself. And we were struggling and leaned into the National Park Foundation. It was the first time that the foundation had taken on a project like this. And we were able to raise over $45 million. And part of that was during the recession. And that memorial wouldn't be there if it wasn't for a lot of people giving. We had large gifts, but we had a lot of people giving $93 over and over again. And that's one of the moments that really convinced me that there was something magical here. I'll share a story with you. I had one day where I was on the phone with a congressman. It wasn't going well. And when those days would happen, I would just walk down and talk to visitors. It was the ultimate palate cleanser, was to just talk to real people. And I ran into this couple down near the crash site itself, and they were an older couple and clearly not of means. And I just struck up a conversation, and I asked them where they were headed, and they looked at me almost offended. They were from San Diego. They flew out to Pittsburgh, did the 2-hour drive out to Shanksville because they had given $93 over and over again, and they wanted to see their memorial. Right? That's incredibly powerful that these people felt so connected to this place, to something selfless in themselves. They had no connection to anybody on the plane. They just knew it was an important place that needed to be part of American history. And so we're fortunate now in the National Park Foundation to bring people together to help create these places and memories for others.
Yeah. We talk about the mall, right? The Lincoln Memorial, obvious. The Shanksville, obvious. But there's what's the criteria? How do you pick and choose what's a nice park and what's a national park? How do you go about figuring that out?
Yeah, there is a secret sauce to it. So Congress actually created a series of criteria that any possible new site is measured against, and so it has to be nationally significant. It can't be represented someplace else. There's a series of pretty strict criteria, and years of study that go through. It was one of the interesting things about Flight 93. Usually for a historic event, you usually wait up to 50 years after the event just to make sure that people aren't in the moment overreacting to something. Flight 93 went through within almost a year of 9/11. Everybody knew that it was a site of that importance. But there is this very deliberate process to make sure that the most scenic, the most naturally important, culturally important sites are part of the system. And now it's over 430. And the beauty of it is so many of those sites are in communities that when you say you're in St. Louis, right? When people come to visit you, you take them to the Arch probably, right? These are places that are not only nationally significant, but they're the pride of communities too. And that is one of the great things about parks. Again, they're a great unifier. They're a common ground where people come together. It might be your community, but you're also kind of showing that off to the world. And we have parks in every state, and capturing kind of every part of the American story and the American landscape.
I promised myself I wouldn't talk about the Arch, but you brought it up, so that means I can talk about the Arch. I love the Arch. I driving across the country in my college days, right? You always went through St. Louis, and every time you got to the Mississippi River and you got to the Arch, it was. I've always had a love affair with the Arch. But what shocks me is when people come and visit, friends, relatives, college buddies. Every time they come to St. Louis, they all say, "Take me to the Arch." And so it's I don't know. The Arch is phenomenal in and of itself, but it's a national park. It's like it's one of those things. It's not just the biggest ball of twine on the side of the road. It's something that right. Even the most harshest critics, the toughest nail, gets all sentimental when you come to a national park.
Most definitely. And St. Louis there, you're living that story of the Arch was amazing for decades. But what the community and the Gateway Arch Parks Foundation were able to do with the National Park Service and kind of reimagining that lower part of St. Louis is it's a catalyst for redeveloping that whole area and making the experience at the Arch even better. And that's one of the amazing things of parks is they have that chance to bring people together, to be part of something bigger that they can take local and national pride in. And you talk to anybody, you go to their city, and they probably tell you, what's the important tourist attractions. And in many cases, they're national parks.
Yeah. I also love the fact that just the genius of whoever was on that committee who picked the Arch as the winning design, right? And they call Eno Saarinen and they say, you won. And he's like, oh, my dad will be so happy he won. No, you did. Your dad didn't win. You won.
Yeah, it's great. It is amazing. And it's very cool. People think of the classic Western parks, but there are some architectural gems within the Park Service as well that the agency protects.
Talk about the visitors and the amount of visitors, because it's staggering how many people year in and year out go to the national parks and use it as this summer we're going here, this summer we're going there. Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's over 300 million people that come to national parks every year. If you take, the former director of the National Park Service used to say, if you take all the people that go to NFL games, NBA, NHL, Major League Soccer, NASCAR, something like that, the number of people that go to national parks still dwarfs those. Right, all of the professional sports leagues, and it's amazing that they are ambassadors for the nation. The number of people when they come from overseas, places they want to go, the national parks are high on their list, and so it's not only that kind of communal experience that we can have, but the beauty of it too is that if you think of the places that you've been to, I would challenge anybody to not remember who you saw them with. Right. I think that's part of the amazing thing, too. I can remember when I went to the Grand Canyon it was a year ago, and I took my 16-year-old son at the time. I remember that experience because I was with him. We did that amazing thing together. And that's the beauty of the parks. And the sheer number of people that come is very impressive, but it's also very personal and very meaningful. And both of us will have the memories of that visit. And the one thing I got to see on the mall, which was very cool, is everything on the mall is free, and we would see lots of people making that first visit. And I used to challenge our staff. I said, our standard needs to be, you should assume that every visitor that comes here has saved up their life savings and will never come back, right? The experience has to be that good. And that's the way the Park Service approaches a lot of this. They take that very seriously, that when you come to these sites, they want them to be the best. They want to show them off. They want you to have a great time because they are your parks.
I had lucky enough to go down the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon, and among the many things that I took from that life-altering trip was the reverence the guides had and the respect they had for the Grand Canyon, right? Everything you bring in, you got to bring out. There's not a wrapper. There's not a beer can. There's not a soda can. There's not a shoelace. Nothing, right? Everything you bring in, you got to bring out. And it was, of course, we don't want to ruin this or defile this for the next person who's going to come and see for themselves the grandeur of this place.
Most definitely. We have this saying with the National Park Foundation that parks need more than love. They need us. And that is it's not a place that you can just put your arms around. It's a place that you need to take care of and be reverent while you're there and think about the others that are experiencing it. And, the world seems to be getting a little more eye-oriented and self-oriented. And it's nice when you're at these places that you're thinking about the next generation, right? Or you're thinking about the next visitor that comes around. You want it to look good for them too. So that is one of the elements of the national park visit that I think separates it from many others.
Okay, so let's talk about the volunteerism aspect of this. Are national parks looking for volunteers?
All the time. Yes, most definitely. National park or volunteers make up a huge and a very important element of the workforce. I'll tell you a very personal story. When I was at the Flight 93 Memorial, I grew up not far from there. And I was down giving a tour one day. I'm down near the crash site, and I hear this voice that sounds a lot like mine. And I turned around, and it's my father. And my mother and father started to volunteer there. And they've been doing it for 20 years now. And every Friday and Sunday, if you go by, you will see my parents there. And it's one of those things that they were drawn to. They felt a real desire to want to tell people the story, make sure that they had the best experience possible. And the amazing thing about the national parks is there's so many different things you can volunteer for. Sometimes it is like my parents do, where they greet visitors and answer questions. My father's a retired professor. He gives programs there about the passengers and crew and what happened on Flight 93. When I was on the National Mall, we had a woman who volunteered. She organized all of the porta-johns on the mall for July 4th. Who would do that? She was amazing at it, though. And every year, Sandy would come in and plan out the porta-johns for this. So it's everything from that to we have people that engage in a lot of science programs and a lot of wildlife programs. And if you have an interest, national parks are looking for it. And that is one of the things that I really enjoy about coming to the National Park Foundation is we help support volunteers in parks. The National Park Service needs things to support their volunteers and for their programs to run well. And so at a national level, we accept donations and then push them out to parks or to groups like the Gateway Arch Foundation so that their programs can run smoothly. But the parks really don't, they would have a hard time surviving without the volunteer force that they have.
I always thought, Jeff, you were the most important part of the parks. It turns out Sandy is the most important part, the person in charge of the porta potties. And you probably should pay her. I mean, come on, seriously, that should be a paid position. Come on, the poor woman.
I would have hired Sandy if we could have. But it is amazing when you go and if you get a chance, talk to the Rangers, talk to the volunteers. I love that you said you want to talk to Rangers. The stories of some of these volunteers, incredibly accomplished people. They've got a lot of things they could do with their lives, and they choose to dedicate them to being in parks. And so for us, that's incredibly rewarding. To be able to support that, that means the most.
Well, Jeff, President and CEO of the National Park Foundation, what a great way to kick off the year-long segment with us and you guys. And so we're going to, on a regular basis, we're going to pick your brain and poke you and make you give us a couple of park rangers so we can pick their brain and find out about national parks that we know about and national parks that we don't know about and everything in between. And we're very much looking forward to it. And it's a great way for this country to come together. And no better way to kick off my first year hosting this show as doing a special 250 celebration with the National Park Foundation. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your continued hard work to make sure we do it right on this show. And thank you for an enjoyable conversation. Good luck, and we'll talk to you down the road.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it, and here's for a good year.
All right, good. Jeff Reinbold. Jeff, what's the website for the National Park Foundation if somebody wants to find out more?
Yeah, we set up one special for this, so nationalparks.org/radio. And they can find out more about us.
National Park, say it again, National,
Parks,
what is it?
Plural, National Parks with an S.org/radio.
Nationalparks.org/radio. Perfect. Great.
Yeah.
Jeff, thank you very much. Look forward to it, and we'll talk to you soon.
This is great. Thanks.
You got it. Nationalparks.org/radio. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, it's open phones the next hour. Whatever your little heart desires. We got a poll going tonight. I haven't been plugging it very well. We've been busy with a lot of our guests. But the poll tonight is, are you in favor of regime change in Iran? We're still trying to figure out the polling, or the polls, if you will. But I came up with that one. Are you in favor of regime change in Iran? Vote yes or vote no. You have to text your answer. Vote yes or vote no. And you text it to 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. That's the phone number. So it's open phones. So we got people lining up right now for next hour. So you want to call in, you want to get in. Much better to call in early than late. Sometimes if you call late in the hour, we have a hard time getting everybody in. So we always recommend for you to call in early. And then, of course, if you want to text anything, same phone number, 1-844-262-4729. And, of course, phone calls. We love phone calls. We love texts. But if you want to vote in the poll, you have to text. Don't text yes. Don't text no. You have to text in vote no, vote yes. So the machine can pick up your vote, if you will. Since we're voting absentee, and there's always a chance for fraud with absentee balloting. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We'll take phone calls next hour. And somebody from the text line wanted to know what was the name of that website again. It's called nationalparks.org/radio. Nationalparks nationalparks.org/radio. Also from the text line, listen to this one. This was a good one. Gore Vidal tonight, the Village Voice last night. These are our objects of admiration. Really? How about some Buckley? We'll do our best. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't know our guest was going to quote Gore Vidal. Also, the Village Voice. I thought that was really interesting the other night. All the great stories about the Village Voice. All right, so we'll do this. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back with open phones. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The poll question tonight, are you in favor of regime change in Iran? Vote yes, vote no, and we'll bring you the results at the end of next hour. It's a Tuesday night here on America at Night. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
This line is open, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The text line is open. Text your pithy and interesting comments. It's also the place where the poll is being conducted. Are you in favor of regime change in Iran? Right now, the yes is 83% to 16%. So it's still early in the polling. We'll get more results as we kick it into high gear this hour. But right now, the yes, people very much in favor of regime change in Iran, 83% to 16%. If you want to vote, text in 1-844-2-McGraw. Vote yes or vote no, depending on your point of view. And, of course, the phone number is 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. I love this. I love this stat. Tom Homan, who is the border czar for the Trump administration, people's heads explode when they learn that in 2015, President Barack Obama awarded Tom Homan, yes, the same Tom Homan who was Trump's border czar, President Barack Obama awarded him the Presidential Rank Award for Distinguished Service as the Executive Associate Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. He was Enforcement and Removal Operations at the time. Homan was recognized for his leadership and his effectiveness in immigration enforcement. Homan was honored for his performance in overseeing, at the time, a record number of deportations of individuals with criminal histories. Let's see here. He was also awarded this as evidence of Homan's longstanding bipartisan recognition for effective, strict immigration enforcement, including his early support for family separation policies as a deterrence tool. This is the man that President Obama gave the Presidential Rank Award for Distinguished Service. Now he is President Trump's border czar. People's heads explode over that one. Listen to this. So the Super Bowl's set, right? The Seattle Seahawks taking on the New England Patriots. Here's a couple of facts about the Super Bowl you may or may not know. Sam Darnold went to USC. He will be the first quarterback in the history of USC to start a Super Bowl. I find that so hard to believe. That's one. Two, he's the first quarterback he's the first quarterback from the draft class of 2018 to start a Super Bowl. That draft class includes Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen. There was a couple of other ones in there. There was a couple of others in there, but right, those are the three biggies. He's the first one, and listen to this: he is the first quarterback, or I should say, the first former New York Jet quarterback who will host a Super Bowl since Joe Namath. Now, other Jet quarterbacks have started a Super Bowl, like Boomer Esiason, and then with the Bengals, and then years later played for the Jets. But Joe Namath played for the Jets, went to a Super Bowl. Sam Darnold played for the Jets, was released, went to Carolina, went to Minnesota, and then now is in Seattle. And so he's the first former New York Jet quarterback since Joe Namath to start a Super Bowl. And one more little nugget of information before we go to the phones. This apparently is the first Super Bowl the New England Patriots will play in since Bill Belichick's girlfriend has graduated from high school. So you got that, too, going on. Lots of great Super Bowl trivia going on. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Let's go to the phones. Joe in Salem, Arkansas. Joe, welcome to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, McGraw. I tell you, this Kinzer fellow, he's very well studied as to why we've got these problems today. He could have went back to George Washington. Our politicians need to heed the advice in the farewell address to stay out of foreign entanglements. Also, if you go back even farther, the people causing the trouble, they were called Persians for a while, the Iranians. Well, you know, it says in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that the sons of Ishmael, which came from Hagar, called Hagarenes at one time, that they will be wild men forever, raising their hand to not only all men, but to their own. And that's what they do. They kill their own people. Trying to rehabilitate or regime change, it's not ever going to work. It's part of prophecy.
Well, I thought I would highly recommend anybody who didn't hear that go back and listen to Stephen Kinzer, who wrote the book All the Shah's Men. It was so fascinating to go back and hear the overthrow of the Shah in we overthrew a duly elected democratic regime in Iran and installed a puppet government, and we're shocked they're mad at us. Right? I mean, why are they mad at? Well, we took their democratically elected people and we threw them overboard and put in a guy who tortured them for 20 years, and we're shocked they're mad at us. It was a look at history that you don't normally get to hear about, and we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. I thought it was a fascinating voice in the conversation.
Well, a lot of our problem is we're messing with people's cultures, which are so different than ours. It's really hard to mix these cultures all in the same pot, and that's another reason they hate us for it. Also, Ishmael, he was sent away with land. That land is. I've got a Bible. I've got a 50s Bible endorsed by Billy Graham that shows Palestine to be that whole Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
And then all the rest of the territories are about the same for each tribe of Israel, each brother. And as far as Palestinians go, they keep saying the Palestinians aren't a people, they don't have any land. That is the issue of Ishmael back then. And God said, give them what they need and their own land and everything. But Ishmael, you know, him and his people thereafter, they got sore about the birthright going to Isaac, see.
Well, Joe.
And
Joe,
I wish they would get a biblical view of some of this stuff, and maybe the problems could be answered, you know. So,
Joe,
anyway.
I thank you for listening, and I thank you for calling in. Call back anytime, Joe. Thanks. Eduardo in Tampa, Florida. Welcome to America at Night. Hello. Eduardo?
Can you hear me, McGraw?
Yes, I can. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I wanted to talk about is co-living, particularly what happened when you were talking about the upcoming economic collapse with your guests.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think obviously wages are not keeping up with the inflation. So, I mean, I tell young people, go and learn a skill through a trade school. That's what I tell young people. Do not waste your time going through college because you're just going to be in debt. You know, you're not going to be able to buy a home or buy a car or, you know, go on vacation, whatever you want to do in the future. So.
Well, I mean, look, I think that college is, depends on what they want to do. There are some people who, have a hard time, using a screwdriver, and there are other people who are very good at using their hands. I think I agree with you that there's college isn't for everyone, or trade schools or secondary schools like that, a much easier path. That the shop classes in high school where you can learn a skill or a trade, right? Those are great resources for people. Some people aren't necessarily book smart. They're smart, but they're smart in other ways. They're smart with their hands. They're smart with other parts of their mind. No, you're right. And it's I in some ways I think there's quite a bit of backlash to all of this for all sorts of reasons. And the interesting thing was I was reading today that Yale University has now made it tuition free for anybody who gets accepted to Yale whose family makes under $200,000. which I thought was interesting because I think the schools are starting to realize that $90,000 a year for 1 year of college is just breaking the bank of these people, and you just can't go, whether it's student loans or everything else. So there's nothing wrong with a little bit of competition for the future minds of
and you know what else
America.
came in the news is the Trump administration delayed doing the collection on the repayments. That came in the news? They're going to delay it till the summer.
Oh, well, that was Trump did that during COVID. Trump put a moratorium on the student loans, and then Biden tried to get rid of them. Then it was overturned by the Supreme Court, and now now it's all over the place. It depends on what kind of loan you got, or where you got it from, or who loaned it to you, and somebody's being someone's getting dinged for it, and somebody else isn't paying it back. So right now, I pity anybody who has a student loan, because it's really it is really kind of confusing. Hey, Eduardo in Tampa, thanks for checking in.
Thank you
Mark
very much.
You got it. Thanks for calling. Jeremiah in Clarksville and Mark in Palm Desert. Hold on. We got to take a break. America at Night, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We have a couple of lines open for you. Text in your comments. The same number, 1-844-2-McGraw. That's MCGRAW. Poll question tonight: are you in favor of regime change in Iran? Text in, vote yes, vote no, and your vote will be registered. America at Night, back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. What's happening in your world? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
California's checking in tonight from the text line from the 909. Agree with the texter who wants to hear more about William F. Buckley. So there you go. How about this one from British Columbia? Did Elvis ever play football? And what songs did he sing? That I don't know. That is weird. I support regime change in the U.S. JK. Oh, there you go. There's a good text for you. How was it worth it? But yes, for what? No, for what? I don't. You can't voice the text. It doesn't work like that. Mark in Palm Desert, California. Thanks for holding on. Welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Hey, McGraw. I love the story about the national parks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish everybody would get out and visit some. I've been to a bunch of them, especially here in the Southwest. It's a great part of our country and history, the whole system, how he was talking, how it was set up.
Sure.
But it made me wanted to talk about the first guest who wrote a couple books and was talking about Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting to hear about 1953, how we kind of assisted with the coup and changed their system. But he says, I think that was the first democratically elected. I wonder what system they had back in the 1800s, early 1900s. And I was surprised. And he said, we act like they're savages over there. I don't know. The last 3 weeks, I've heard that 30, 40,000, 50,000 people are being killed. It's brutal. And, they've been saying for decades, death to America, death to Israel. So, that's not a democratic regime. That's not a
I don't think
socialist.
I don't think he was saying it was a democratic regime today, but I think his point is that in 1953, we changed a democratically elected regime who tried to stay neutral and put in our own guy, only to have it backfire on us. We put in the Shah of Iran, who was a brutal dictator to his own people. Therefore, they didn't like Americans because we took away their democratically elected representatives and installed somebody who was a brutal dictator. So it's shocking that they don't like us. It shouldn't be that shocking to us that they don't like us because we put in somebody who was very mean to them.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand that he was a brutal dictator. The
Shah of Iran was a brutal dictator. Kept his
all the way through the 70s.
Oh, absolutely! Go back and look. He threw exorbitant parties, insanely expensive parties at insanely expensive palaces, while his people were starving to death. So.
Yeah, I know Iran was westernized, and it's just, in the last 10 years, I think they've had 4 or 5 outbreaks of protests. These people are yearning for freedom. That's a basic instinct of the human heart.
Absolutely.
And, President Trump said help was on the way, so he kind of emboldened them. And it's, with the Israel war last year, they degraded. And we took out their nuclear. That's a good thing because, they want to destroy the big Satan, which is us. So the radical Islamists who are in charge, they're just murderous. And
yes, but why do they hate Americans? It's because all they remember is 1953, right? Why is it that we were able to forgive the Japan 5 years later? And we're still not able to make amends with Iran, right? I mean, think of all the issues. With the Iraq-Iran war, we supported Iraq because they were the enemy of our enemy. Well, look at where that got us. And so he was pointing to it. If we don't overthrow a democratically elected government in 1953, the last 70 years would be very different in the Middle East because of what we did in 1953. Mark, thanks for the phone call. I appreciate it. We have got to break. Jeremiah in Clarksville, a couple more. We have a couple of lines open for you right now. We got a big segment coming up in just a minute. We got a break for bottom of the hour. Heartbreak. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Text your comments. Text your poll. Are you in favor of regime change in Iran? Vote yes, vote no. That's the latest. America at Night. Back in a moment. Stay right there.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. What's on your mind? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Now I'm up. Welcome back, America at Night, 1-844-262-4729. Mac in Roseburg, Oregon. Mac, welcome to America at Night.
If you could talk about your baseball career. You said you played Division I baseball, which if people don't know that you have to be good to play at that level. And then I think you said you were from New York, and then you got a scholarship to Nebraska. Is that?
Well, it'll be a short conversation.
Okay.
Yes,
well, let's hear it.
I did play college baseball. I played college baseball.
You had to be pretty good.
Well, I mean, if you talk to me, I was great. Everybody else was.
Yeah.
No, I was. Look, here's the deal. I played baseball at the University of Nebraska back in the old Big 8 days. That shows you how old I am.
I'm 80, so I know about
All right, fair enough. So I played in Lincoln for John Sanders and made lifelong friends, wonderful memories. When I was good enough, I played. When I wasn't good enough, I didn't play. Had a nice little career. Hurt my shoulder at the end of my career and graduated.
Which was what, your senior year? Or
So going into my senior year, I blew out my shoulder and, never really recovered. And
so were you a pitcher?
I was a pitcher, yes. I was a pitcher.
Okay. Well, that's what it is.
Yeah. Played against Robin Ventura at Oklahoma City, Chuck Knobloch, Texas A&M, Jeremy Burnitz at Oklahoma State. So a couple guys along the way. Played with a couple guys who had a cup of coffee in the bigs. But, when I was good enough, I played. When I wasn't, I didn't play. And it was a wonderful experience and cherished every moment of it. And I'm a lifelong Husker fan and always have a soft spot in my heart for Lincoln and the state of Nebraska and Husker fans everywhere.
Okay. How did you end up in Nebraska?
So it's interesting. When I was in high school, a scout named Al Goldis, who
Where was high school? Where did you go to high school?
Long Island, New York.
Okay.
Manhasset High School up in the North Shore of Long Island. And Al Goldis was a scout for the California Angels at the time. He was the one who was singing Bo Jackson's praises. He saw me play. He ended up becoming the general manager for the Chicago Cubs for a while, Al Goldis. But at that point, he was head scout for the Angels, and he liked me, and he told a couple players, a couple coaches about me, and we ended up picking the University of Nebraska.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. I know you bring it up briefly, but you never really got into it.
I've never, I never wanted to be one of those guys. Let me tell you about my college days, right? I mean,
yeah. Okay.
It was a time and place. It was wonderful. I got great stories to tell. I gave up a home run.
I just think that people don't understand. You have to be, just not anybody plays Division I baseball. You got to be a pretty good baseball player to play at that level.
Well, I gave up a home run at Iowa State that landed about 10 minutes ago.
Well, everybody gives, that happens. You probably struck out a few, too, here and there.
I did strike out a few along the way. Yeah, absolutely.
How about that? Were you a strikeout type pitcher?
I started a couple games. I was a reliever mostly. I would come in, first guy out of the bullpen, come in with the jam, bases loaded, one out, bases loaded, nobody out, get the ground ball, double play. But I started a couple games. I did all right. One year I led the team in broke the record for appearances, which was then broken a couple years later. No, I was okay. I was, I wasn't.
How was that? What was
it was okay. I'm not being false modest. I was average. I was probably an average.
Any
college
talk
baseball player.
of professional? Any?
Yeah, in my own mind, you betcha.
That was it, though.
Look, my experience is the guys who made it to the majors had just there was such a gap in the talent.
No, not majors. I'm talking minor. Did you
in the minors? In the minors, if I didn't hurt my arm, maybe I could have signed and hung along for a year or two or something. But okay. I didn't have. I'll tell you what, I didn't have the physical. And to be honest with you, I probably didn't have the mental because the guys who make it, it's all encompassing, and the gap in the mental and the physical is like night and day. From high school to college, and then college to the pros, it's night and day. Yeah. And I just didn't. Not that I had the talent, but I just didn't. I didn't want it the way others did.
Yeah.
I will say this though. The first time I cracked a microphone. That's what I knew what I wanted to do.
Okay, well.
I loved baseball, but when I cracked the mic for the first time, that's when I fell in love.
Well, good. It's still to play at that level is a pretty good achievement.
I appreciate it.
If you follow baseball and know about sports, that's
Well, I love baseball. I love baseball. I love watching it. I love talking it. Are you still a
baseball fan?
Still a baseball fan. Always be a fan. Always be a fan.
Are you the Yankees or
no?
What?
I'm the Mets. I'm the Mets.
Okay.
Mets and the Cardinals.
Okay, I'm a Dodger fan.
Always be true to the Mets. And I've lived in St. Louis for 25 years, so Cardinals are my second team.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Mac, thanks for checking in. Call back anytime. Talk baseball anytime. You got it. Thanks. All right, we'll take another one here. Let's go to Nick in Chicago, Illinois. Nick, welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. I don't know what you said there mistakenly, but it sounded cute. Thank you. I want to say about the Hoover Dam. Originally, it was going to be called the Boulder Dam, and then the joke was that maybe Roosevelt felt Hoover wasn't worth a damn because he was president during the time of the Great Depression. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that story. And then I was going to say, from the major hotels, you can take a tour bus. They'll arrange it, to let you know when they're pulling up and all that, and when you should be there to catch the bus or take a tour bus. I think it's about 45-minute drive out to the Hoover Dam. And the important thing is, if you take an airplane to go see another topic from Las Vegas, if you take an airplane to go see, or you want to go see the Grand Canyon, the famous area on calendars and travel shows is the South Rim. That's where you want to make sure that you go, because I took a jet copter with a few other people out to the Grand Canyon. It said to the Grand Canyon. Well, it was a big hole in the ground at the west end of the Grand Canyon. It was nice, but it wasn't the South Rim, which is that fantastic, beautiful area. So make sure it goes the airplane and just double check it goes to the South Rim, so you don't.
Okay, now hold on a second. The South Rim is how you get there from Scottsdale and Phoenix going north, right? From Vegas.
I don't know about
Vegas
that.
is the North Rim, right?
I don't know about. I know from Phoenix, what I've heard is you can catch a plane going to the South Rim also. Yeah. But I know from Las Vegas.
Well, the Vegas side, you can go to the Sky Bridge, that sort of horseshoe that sort of jets out, where it's a see-through bottom, and you can walk out, which I've done. You can walk out and sort of walk, out and look down to the canyon floor. I've been to Vegas and then done the Hoover Dam, which is a blast, but then gone the extra mile to the Sky Bridge, and that's a whole lot of fun too. That's a fun day trip.
Yeah. And then I want to ask you. So remember, people, if you're at Las Vegas, you can see the Hoover Dam easily at a major hotel. Especially, they can arrange you to know when a tour bus will come around to pick you up. And then to go to the Grand Canyon, it's a small airplane to take you. I insisted on a 2-engine plane, but the 1-engine plane seemed to be pretty dependable. When's the last time we've heard of a plane crashing out there? It does happen. It happens with the bigger planes too. But anyhow, Nick, and do you know anything about the water level at the Hoover Dam by coincidence?
Nick, thanks for the phone call. I know that it's down. It's down a lot. I know that they're finding some bodies in, right? What's the lake there? Is it Lake Mead there? It's down significantly, and you can see the bathtub ring when you look at the Hoover Dam. So that's really all I know. All right, let's do this. We got time for another one. Let's go to Jeremiah in Clarksville, Tennessee. Jeremiah, hello.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call. It was just what I was calling about was in most recent weeks, everybody's sort of having a hard time wrapping their head around this idiot governor of Minnesota. But it's ironic because in 1934 and 35, the governor of Minnesota told all the gangsters that J. Edgar Hoover was chasing they were welcome to hide out in the state of Minnesota as long as they agreed not to rob their banks. And I thought, wow, man, they ain't had nothing but a basket cases for governors in Minnesota.
It kind of makes sense, really. In some weird way. Hey, hang out here. Just don't steal our banks.
Yeah, well, I understand, but he was the only governor that had canolas to do that. I just thought it was crazy, you never heard of any other state doing that.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, Jeremiah. Thanks for the phone call. It is crazy. It could be crazy like a fox. Hey, you guys are welcome here. Just don't rob our banks. Terry in Manhattan, Kansas. Welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, Terry.
I was just going to bring up, listen to these guys. They're great. I was just going to tell you, I don't get what these protesters are doing, because they're not protesters, they're activists. I mean, they're behaving like terrorists when they're coming at our ICE people, and I just think this whole thing has gotten really crazy, and I'm all for getting these people out. They never ask me or anybody else in this country when they started letting these people come in. And I seen it right from the start what was going on here. The Democrats were bringing in people to vote for them because they suck. and it's simple as that. And I think we got the greatest president we could ever get. And he's got the greatest staff he could ever have. He's got the greatest people working for him. And I just think people need to cut him some slack.
All right. Terry, I thank you for your...
He's got a plan. Anyway.
All right. Terry, I appreciate your insight. Thank you for your keen insight and all that. David in San Francisco, California. Hello.
Oh, thanks, McGraw. I was interested in Iran, Persia. And but before I went to that, I heard watching a piece today, they were saying the gun that Freddie was carrying is missing. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not heard anything about that, though the gun is an interesting topic. I can't believe so many Second Amendment right guys are upset that he was carrying a gun. I find that so bizarre that somehow he loses his rights to carry a gun when all gun advocates have been talking about everybody has a constitutional right to carry a gun except for this guy. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I have not heard that about the gun being missing.
Yeah, there's a pack of it's called Midas Touch. It's on YouTube, and pack of lawyers talk about issues of the day. They had a piece earlier today about it. Well, Persia is what Iran was, and Persia and Iran are famous for never starting a war. For thousands of years, they never started a war. And what happened in Iran after the fall of the Shah was obviously a CIA plot. They even said that Ayatollah Khomeini was part of the CIA. He was a propagandist for them. And the students captured the embassy, and the students held the embassy staff as hostages. But all of a sudden, this strange Ayatollah is allowed to come back. He had been basically kicked out of Iran by the Shah, and
I think he was living in France at the time for a while. I think he was in exile in France. Yeah.
Right, Paris, yeah. And so all of a sudden he's allowed to come back and he beats out the students. So the students were the educated upcoming generation, and all of a sudden this old-timer Ayatollah that has ties to the CIA comes in. And the first thing that happens is the assets of Iran are seized. $60 billion are seized, and these were not the governmental assets. These were businessmen doing trade all around the world, and they had bank accounts all over the world, and all of a sudden Ronald Reagan is seizing their assets. And the idea that they only got them back after 40 years, and the ignorance of people who are talking about, Obama gave them back their money. He gave back the businessmen their money.
Well, I think the point the guest was making in the first hour was that we pick up the history. We don't forget the hostages of 1979 and 1980. But let's go back to why they don't like Americans. And that was because, as the guest said, we took a democratically elected government and we installed our own puppet there. So shockingly, these people weren't happy. And so one of the reasons why we installed somebody who tortured them for the next 25 years. So, of course, Imagine if somebody was duly elected in this country and some other country came in and put somebody else in power and then tortured Americans for the next 20 years. We'd be a little angry at them, wouldn't we? And so I think that was the point he was trying to make. David, I got to go. David, I got to go. I'm short on time. Thanks for checking in, as always. America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, don't forget to text your comments in the poll. Are you for regime change in Iran? Text yes, vote no. 1-844-2-McGraw. It'll be up all night long, and we'll leave you with this. 500,000 people in the southern states are still without power. 500,000 people still without power. And the snow, man, it hit it went right through the heart of Indiana, right through the heart of Ohio and into Pennsylvania and up into New York. That swath right there got upwards of 15 to 20 inches of snow. Other parts got 5, 6, 8, 10 inches. But that swath right there went right through Indiana, right through Ohio, right through Pennsylvania, on into upper New York. And then, of course, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, all of that, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, just got pummeled with 20-plus inches of snow. And it always kills me that they take the snow and they just, like in Boston or in New York, they just take the snow and they dump it in the river. Makes sense, but it's kind of weird to watch. All right, we're done. Thanks for everybody who's checking in. Thanks for the national parks. Thanks to our first hour guest. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night. Thanks for tuning in and calling. We'll do it all again tomorrow night. This is Westwood One.